Because, my favorite quote about entrepreneurs is, if you want to understand an entrepreneur, study the juvenile delinquent. Because they're basically saying, oh, this sucks. I'm going to do it my own way. Why do I love nature? Because I'm part of it.
Have you ever felt like you didn't quite fit in? Have you ever had somebody place a definition on you that didn't feel quite right? That's been my experience for much of my life. Previously, working at a place like this and knowing a thing or two about personal finance has led many people to call me a money guy. But I couldn't disagree more. Do I look like a money guy to you? I can tell you that I certainly did not when I biked downtown to work on Bay Street every day wearing a tank top, athletic shorts, and Birkenstock sandals. I stepped right into the elevator next to all of the suits, and then when I got to my floor, I stepped out into my company's main entranceway and walked by all the executives, my bosses, all in their very constrictive outfits du jour. And in their faces, I saw a very familiar look. The shock of seeing a person not willing to conform. Today, I want to speak to those of you who feel like you're in a particular group or area of expertise, field, what have you, but you don't feel like you fit the stereotype of that group. Maybe you're a supposed money guy or girl like me, but you don't really care for happy hour on King Street or bragging about who worked the latest last night or flooding your body full of stimulants. And maybe you feel like because of that, you're not in the right place, that you should turn around and go back. Well, I'm here to tell you that I think you're in the right place. In fact, I think this place needs you. Heck, the world needs you. And to help me explain what I mean by this, I want to tell you the story of one of the great rebels of our time, Yvon Chouinard, the founder of Patagonia. As many of you are probably aware by now, Yvon and his family decided to effectively donate the entire multi-billion-dollar ownership of his company towards philanthropic purposes. But what you might not be aware of is how Yvon never wanted to be a businessman. In fact, he's very reluctant to be called one in the first place. And his story, more than any of the great products that his company sells, appears to be the reason why Patagonia has built such a loyal following. You see, back in the 50s, Yvon fell in love with rock climbing at the age of 14 after becoming a member of a local falconry club. In order to get to the eyries, or the bird's nest, they had to basically rappel down a cliff face. And after this first sweet taste with climbing, he began setting himself up to tackle more challenging areas like Yosemite with his friends. But Yvon ran into a problem with the current state of rock climbing at that time. Specifically, there was a problem with the gear they used, an item called a piton, which was essentially a metal stake that they drove into the rock. He found that these were poor quality. On top of that, they were often hammered into the mountain and then basically just left there for the next group to use. As Yvonne put it, the attitude back then was about dominating the mountains, conquering them, and leaving all your gear behind to make it easier for the next party. But he wanted to climb without leaving a trace. He wanted to leave the mountain in its natural state for the next person to enjoy in the same way it was the first time he climbed. So, what did he do? Well, being the renegade that he is, he bought an old coal-fired forge and taught himself how to blacksmith. Yep. And then he forged something that was the first of its kind, a reusable piton that you could put into and then take out of the mountainside. And just like that, business was ringing at his doorstep. Other climbers were clamoring to buy these things. This would set in motion a series of events which would ultimately result in the creation of the company Patagonia, a brand which to this day innovates in the realms of quality, utility, sustainability, and activism, all while being a very successful commercial enterprise. Did you know that Patagonia was apparently the first company to introduce the concept of layering to people back in the 80s in these catalogs that they would send out for marketing purposes? Yep. This shirt right here with their special capilene material is actually hydrophilic, which means that it essentially wicks moisture away from the body. So it acts as the perfect base layer. And this cinchilla, this pullover, is made of a special material that insulates when wet, but also dries extremely quickly. These materials have been around since the 80s when they first developed them, and they're still making clothing with them today. So according to their website, they were the first company to kind of put this education out there into the public and to develop these types of products for outdoor enthusiasts because they were so passionate about being able to explore and enjoy the outdoors. Fast forward several years, because of this innovation that Patagonia created, they experienced tremendous growth. People just couldn't get enough. So what did Yvonne do? Did he decide, you know what, hey, this has been a great ride. Maybe it's time for me, I'm growing older. Maybe it's time for me to cash out and enrich myself and my family. Quite the contrary. As I said in the beginning, Yvonne never considered himself a businessman. He certainly did not intend to be one, or to start a multi-billion-dollar company, or to become rich. He simply wanted to create clothing and tools that would help him and other people like him be able to explore the wonders of nature. But being an astute man, he realized that he was, in fact, quite good at being a businessman. Just listen to this interview with his CEO.
I think that what people fail to understand about Patagonia, both the past and today and the future, is that we're unapologetically a for-profit business. We're extremely competitive. The Chenards are extremely competitive about the business. We focus on making high-quality products, standing behind that product for the usable life of it. And we compete with every other company in our space aggressively.
And because the company was successful like this commercially, they realized that they had accumulated a type of power, a power that could be used for good. Since the 70s, Patagonia has been engaging in grassroots causes that they believe in. And later, they would go on to donate 1% of sales, not profits, sales towards these causes. And this was a pledge they made that has always been kept ever since the first time they made it, through thick and thin. On top of that, the company instituted everything from on-site childcare facilities to becoming a certified B Corporation, which means they must have an explicit social or environmental mission and a legally binding fiduciary responsibility to take into account the interests of workers, the community, and the environment. Yvonne even published a book called Let My People Go Surfing, The Education of a Reluctant Businessman, a book which I very much look forward to reading. And the reason he wrote this book really stuck with me. I didn't publish the book to get rich. I did it because as a reluctant businessman, I had learned an important lesson about business. Regardless of what you sell, your business itself, including your culture and your values, is your product. What I personally take away from Yvonne's story is that just because he didn't see himself as a businessman, or just because he didn't fit into that stereotype, this didn't stop him from going headfirst into the business world and making a major mark on it as a result. Patagonia is what it is because of the fact that Yvonne is a reluctant businessman. My channel, I think, is whatever it is because of the fact I'm a reluctant money guy. And whatever you're building, you're creating, can be the same. You don't fit in? Good. Like Cootie said in the Genius documentary,
I don't know if y'all realize how long I've been spitting, or the fact that I'm actually talking about something. And I'm not just sitting on a beat basically trying to emulate whatever rappers is hot out. You know what I'm saying? But y'all gonna understand it in a minute.